Journalist Jonathan Larson reports that US troops were being told that the US Israeli attack on Iran was in preparation for Armageddon and also the return of Jesus. Cenk, is this comforting information for you?
No, just when you thought the Israeli Zionists were bad enough in starting wars for all the wrong reasons, here comes the Christian Zionists. Joy. Wait till you hear what the commander said about why we're in this war and what to do. Tell us about it, yes.
All right, so let's give you the high points. This is from Jonathan Larson's report. He says a combat unit commander told non-commissioned officers at a briefing Monday that the Iran war is part of God's plan and that President Donald Trump was anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to earth. And that is according to a non-commissioned officer. So we'll talk more about whatever that even means later. But between Saturday and Monday, more than 110 complaints had been logged by the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, or the MRFF, regarding the rhetoric about commanders in every branch of military. The complaints were widespread across more than 40 different units across roughly 30 military installations. And according to one report, the non-commissioned officer wrote to the MRFF that their commander urged us to tell our troops that this was all part of God's divine plan. And he specifically referenced numerous citations out of the book of Revelation, referring to Armageddon and the imminent return of Jesus Christ. And it is very understandable that all of this is coming directly from the top, because Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has enshrined evangelical Christianity at the uppermost levels of the US military, airing monthly prayer meetings throughout the Pentagon. Last year, the Pentagon confirmed to Larson that Hegseth attends a weekly White House Bible study, and it's led by a preacher who says that God commands America to support Israel. And these are the people, again, who are running our country and running our military, and these are the things that they believe. So Larson spoke with MRFF president and founder Mikey Weinstein about the report, and this is what Weinstein had to say. He said, these calls have one damn thing in freaking common. Our MRFF clients, service members who seek MRFF aid, report the unrestricted euphoria of their commanders and command chains as to how this new biblically sanctioned war is clearly the undeniable sign of the expeditious approach of the fundamentalist Christian end times, as vividly described in the New Testament book of Revelation. Many of their commanders are especially delighted with how graphic this battle will be, zeroing in on how bloody all of this must become in order to fulfill and be in 100% accordance with fundamentalist Christian end of word eschatology, and that is, the end of worldness. That is terrifying that they seem to be giddy about everything that's happening now. It seems as though they're finally able to usher in this end of world, and so they can be raptured and go up to heaven. And of course, all of this violates the Constitution, which they don't seem worried about, because the Constitution is very worldly and earthbound. And it also violates the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Weinstein had some choice words for the military members speaking this way to their subordinates, saying that they will be swiftly, aggressively, and visibly prosecuted. However, this is not the first time that talk like this was within our military in some capacity. Weinstein says that this kind of end of the world thinking creeps up anytime that Israel comes up. So after October 7th, 2023, Hamas is obviously attacked Israel, for instance, and the MRFF reported a complaint about an Air Force commander who said at a briefing that the war between Israel and Hamas has all been foretold by the book of Revelation in the gospel of Jesus Christ, and no one can do anything about that. Wow. As for what these evangelicals are even talking about, evangelicals are, in many ways kind of like OG Zionists. Many, including many in our government, believe that Israel must exist in order for Jesus to return. However, Pete Hegseth's Bible study leader, preacher Ralph Drollinger, teaches that the reason to support Israel is that God still blesses Israel's allies and curses Israel's enemies, even though Israel killed Jesus. And of course, this is rooted in historic anti-Semitism. So If you needed more proof that our government was being run by evangelical Zionists, I do have a quick clip to show you. This is Republican Representative Tim Burchett, and he is being asked a question about Israel and the second coming of Jesus and the United States' role in facilitating that.
Do you think there's a role of religious extremism here in the US funding and shaping the conflict? I mean, there are a lot of folks who are part of the evangelical movement that want
support Israel.
To support Israel, and we don't really kind of see that same kind of constituent group pushing the other way.
Yeah, I wouldn't label the Baptist or the evangelical community as extreme, because I feel like they're following the scripture and what the scripture says about Israel. Those who bless Israel will be blessed. I mean, they take it literal, and I'm one of those people.
You know, there's some Christian Zionists that do believe in some of these biblical prophecies, and they're very controversial even within the Christian Zionist evangelical community. Yeah, and believing in Armageddon, that there will be a final battle around Jerusalem, and that after that battle, there's a judgment day. Jews will be killed or converted. Jesus will come back. There's going to be a rapture event. What do you think about those kind of prophecies?
I believe Jesus will come back, and I'm going to be on his side.
So he's going to be on Jesus's side. Jesus is going to come back. They're all going to recognize him. The world, I don't know what's going to, I haven't read the Bible in a while. It's been a while since I read the book of Revelation, I'll admit, but they believe that they will be blessed with heaven or whatever for helping Jesus return to earth. And in order to help Jesus return to earth, they have to facilitate the state of Israel. They have to protect it. And also they have to kill a lot of people, it seems, right? They really just don't feel any kind of remorse about it because they have this strongly held religious, dogmatic, evangelical belief. And that is what is underpinning everything that they're doing in the Middle East. And then of course, as much as they don't care about worldly pleasures and things like that, they are making a ton of money while doing so. They're just going to burn everything to the ground, and they're just going to leave the rest of us behind, and they don't care. This really explains, Cenk, why they don't believe in things like climate change, or why they don't think that it's an issue and they don't pay attention to it, or why they don't care about the institutions that they're burning down. This is a very, very destructive ideology, and it is intentionally so. What do you think?
Yeah, so first that was Lee Fang doing good work in interviewing that congressman. And then Jonathan Larson was our former managing editor here at TYT. Super proud of him. This is a great story. The whole country's talking about it. Want to mention one quick detail in the story that I thought was interesting. They had one group, as Yaz explained to you guys, there's about 110 complaints at least, but one group of 15 in a unit. So you're saying, well, look, they're talking about Christian Zionism, so must have been like atheists or Jews or Muslims or someone that objected. And there was one Jewish guy, soldier, who objected, Jewish American. Obviously, they're all Americans. They're all in our armed forces. One Muslim American. 11 Christians objected. So the majority of the people who objected were Christians. They're like, this doesn't make any sense. So look, guys, do a lot of people believe in the return of Jesus? Absolutely. Like about 4 billion people, it's about half the planet, believe that, at least if they believe their religion, they believe that Jesus is going to return. Why? First, there's the Christians. But the book of Revelations is different than the end times theology. The end times theology comes from a bunch of books that some American jackasses wrote in the 1970s. My conspiracy theory on that is that Israel paid them to write those books because what's in them, which I'm going to tell you in a second, okay? But I'm open and honest. I have no information about that. Jonathan Larson, Lee Fang, Ken, whoever, the Ryan Grim, David Starr, all the great reporters in this country, please go look into that, okay? Because it is so perfect for Israel. But I want you to know the other part of it. So yeah, Christians say Jesus is going to return. That doesn't mean they have to sign up to this Armageddon plan, right? But the other 2 billion is Muslims. Muslims also believe that Jesus is going to return, not Muhammad, but Jesus, because Muslims believe that the third book, the Old Testament, New Testament, and Quran, they respect Christians and Jews, and they call them people of the book. And they believe in all of their prophets, and in fact, at the end, they believe Jesus returns. Again, for traditional Christians and traditional Muslims, that doesn't mean that everybody is annihilated and murdered before Jesus returns, which leads us to the books that were written in the 1970s. So those guys wrote very, very, very conveniently for Israel that Israel must be formed. They must get the occupied territories. Really, that's in the Bible? that they have to get the occupied territories that they got in 1967 somehow in the early 1970s. Look at that. There's a book that says, oh yeah, the Bible says they have to have Gaza and the West Bank. Sure. As my daughter says these days, sure, buddy, sure, right? And then the third thing is they have to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is one of the most holy sites in Islam, so that can start a giant war in the Middle East. By the way, congrats, we do have a giant war in the Middle East, our second one after the Iraq war. And I'm not even counting Afghanistan and all the other things that happened, right? So, and then they think, well, okay, well then what happens next? This seems lovely. We're taking the Palestinians' land, we're destroying their mosques, etc. Jesus wanted all of this. Remember, Muslims also want him to return, so I'm pretty sure they're not into that. But then it gets way worse. Then the war involves almost everyone on earth dying. So that includes you guys, and that includes tons, billions of Christians, let alone billions of Muslims, let alone almost all the Jews. So at the very end, in their twisted version of end times, God kills everyone in Israel. So that doesn't help Israel either, but 144,000 Jews are saved because they realize that Jesus is real in the nick of time, in this ridiculous soap opera for serial killers, okay, that they wrote. Unfortunately, a giant chunk of the country totally got bought into this. By the way, by pastors who were continually given free trips to Israel and given tons of money and perks from Israel, pushing this garbage on American Christians over and over again. Kill the Muslims, give Israel everything, start giant wars for Israel. Don't worry, it'll work out. And by the way, I mean, you know what happens at the end. All the Jews are killed, all the Muslims are killed, and almost all the Christians are killed. Where's the interesting part of this? I mean, this is a maniacal death cult. So that doesn't mean that every Christian Zionist knows that they're in a death cult and is like some weirdo psycho. No, most of them are very normal people. They go to church and they listen to the pastor go, oh yeah, and then at the end everybody's dead. Yes! Like, are you sure that's Jesus coming back and not the other guy? Right? But they've got people to buy into this without knowing it. Perfectly normal people going, and the leaders pretend to speak on behalf of the actual Christians in this country. And the actual Christians that are going to the churches have no idea what those leaders are doing. Those leaders sent a letter to George W. Bush before the Iraq war, and they said, you better not be even between the Palestinians and the Israelis. You must support only the Israelis and crush the Palestinians. That's what Jesus would have wanted because he was born in Bethlehem. Oh, right, that's the West Bank. Oh, he's Jesus of Nazareth. Where's that? The West Bank. So Jesus, who lived in Bethlehem and Nazareth, would have wanted America to fund the country destroying Bethlehem and Nazareth. But these sick guys not only wrote that, but they encouraged Bush at the time. You have to go to war with Iraq and start Armageddon. And now here they are, they're back in our military, telling the troops, go murder as many Muslims as you can because we're trying to start Armageddon. This is ludicrous. We have to end the belief in this death cult. The problem is not the Christian followers, it is those pastors that are deeply corrupt. And yes, there's another reason why, what Tucker Carlson has done lately, people can say I'm a bad guy for supporting Tucker on his anti-war stance, anti-Israel stance, etc. But he also said that the Christian Zionists were totally wrong, and that if you're a good Christian, you wouldn't want any of this death and destruction. And that is an enormous favor to the country that he said that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this entire this whole saga that you just laid out is unbelievable, and it's not just like an unbelievable thing in the sense that it sounds like mythology, but there's so many people who are so entrenched in our government, not just in this government, I should say, but around the world. And they're so zealous about it. And they really just believe that this is a physical thing that they have to help manifest in our reality in this physical world. And the fact that these people are running our country, the fact that we have a prayer breakfast at the White House, the fact that Pete Hegseth has a Bible study now at the Pentagon. It's unbelievable for a country that still proclaims to have some semblance of a separation of church and state. And I know that that line has become very muddled lately, very intentionally so, especially in red states, especially here in Texas. I've been seeing that a lot. But the idea that we used to have religious freedom in this country where it's like, sure, you can practice your own religion. No one's going to force you to be anything, but we're all subject to all of this, right? Nobody voted to invade Iran. Nobody said, I support this. This has like some of the lowest support I think ever for an invasion like this. I think it was at 36% overall, including Republicans. And even among Republicans, it has very little support compared to historically the way that they tend to support these things. But none of that matters, right? And none of that matters if the end goal is something divine and something heavenly and something supernatural and out of this literal world, right? None of this can be proven. This is not a logical thing. And so we're dealing with illogical geopolitics here. And that's why we're struggling to make sense of everything that's happening. And they'll give you all the geopolitical reasons for why it's happening. It's like, oh, they cut off the Strait of Hormuz, and oh, they have weapons of mass destruction. You know who has weapons of mass destruction? You know who has a lot of them, and there is no oversight for any of them is Israel. They have acquired over, I think it was in the 90s, it was reported that they had over 200 nuclear weapons. That was a whistleblower came out and said that in the 90s though. So if that's all true, we can assume that they have a lot more by now. And they acquired them illegally with the help of the United States, of course, and they have no oversight on them. When we had the Iran nuclear deal in place, it was, they weren't allowed to enrich their uranium beyond a certain point, and they weren't allowed to have as many enricher machines, I can't remember what they're called. And all these things were put in place to prevent what Benjamin Netanyahu kept yelling about since, again, the 90s, that they were going to launch a nuclear attack and everybody was gonna be at risk. And so Obama put the Iran nuclear deal in place, and Trump got rid of it. All the oversight was gone, like nothing. And then now he's like, oh, now they're a threat. I don't know why I don't know how that happened, but it's real.
Yeah, look, I think Israel's by far the country most likely to use a nuke. I mean, they're so deeply paranoid. They demand 100% security, etc. If they thought they were like had like 1% chance of losing 1% of their territory or something, they'd nuke someone in a second. I'm super duper worried about it. Yes, there's a country in the Middle East that has nukes already. It is Israel. Is there a country that's likely to use it, or that I'm worried is the most likely to use it? Let's put it that way. Yes, it's definitely Israel. So I realize that as we're doing the story, yes, I'm the exact opposite of a Christian Zionist. So they're actually, again, guys, not the Christians themselves. They barely know anything about it, right? It's the leaders that I'm talking about. They're actually deeply anti-Semitic. And so Pete Hegseth is doing a Bible study at the Pentagon every week. Already that's unconstitutional. Then he brings this crazy pastor that keeps preaching about, and this is another story that Jonathan Larson broke, preaching about how, oh, the Jews killed Jesus. What is that? I never understood that. I think it's crazy talk. Like, first of all, yes, the Romans killed Jesus, but second of all, who cares? Jesus was Jewish. Like, this is madness. So that's why I say I'm the exact opposite of them. They love Israel and Israel's wars and war crimes, but they actually don't like Jews at all. I love Jewish people, companies like, and my life and my friends, my family, and I tell you guys all the time, the crimes of Israel don't ever make the mistake of putting that on Jewish Americans who had nothing to do with it, okay? So I love those guys, and I can't stand Israel at current government, their wars and their war crimes. So, and then ironically, the people who are supporting Israel that are in that Christian Zionist group and other groups like that will turn around and say to us, oh, you guys are anti-Semites, we're not supporting Israel. Bro, you want to kill all of them, and that's your dream scenario. So please spare me the anti-Semite crap from those guys especially, also from everyone else.